Have you ever prepared a batch of mold culture using your trusty Mold 600 for your salami or your salumi, only to realize that you've made more than you need? And not really knowing what to do with the extra, you hesitantly throw it down the drain. Well, there's no need to toss that extra mold culture, because in today's episode, I'm going to share with you a couple of tips on what you can do when you prepare that mold culture so that it will last at least 60 days in your refrigerator. Thanks for joining me, everyone, on another episode of Beyond the Recipe, Salami Edition. My name is Eric, and today we're talking mold. Now, there's something you need to know about mold, because when you take meat that's either cured or fermented and you hang it in an environment that's between 50 Fahrenheit and 60 Fahrenheit, the inevitable reality is that mold will grow on that meat. Now, there's lots of good molds and bad molds, but unless you are a mycologist and you can discern the difference between the good ones and the bad ones, I often recommend adding a specific mold to your meat, and that particular mold is called Mold 600. Now, this is a great mold because it has not only a wonderful earthy, mushroomy flavor, but it's also a warring mold that completely coats the outside of your meat, protecting it from unwanted molds. This mold is generally prepared in advance, and to prepare it, all you do is take some of this freeze-dried culture, add it to distilled water, and let it sit on your counter at room temperature for a couple hours. This helps the mold get nice and active. And by the time you need it, you will either brush, roll, dip, or spray that liquid mold culture on the exterior of your charcuterie, and within about a week, you'll start to notice mold growth. The problem is that that mold culture that you just made doesn't have a very long shelf life, and the longer that it sits in your refrigerator, the less effective that it's going to be. And I'm talking 3, 4, 5 days. So what most people do is they just end up tossing it out because they're not making salami or charcuterie every single day. In today's video, I'm going to show you a very easy recipe that will allow you to take that mold culture, prepare it in such a way that will give you a 60-day shelf life. You just got to prepare it once, keep it in the fridge, and grab it when you need it. Let's get started. All right, let's take a look at what we're working with. We've got a regular glass measuring cup. We've also got some measuring spoons and a little funnel. The funnel isn't entirely necessary, but it does make things easier. We've got a plastic squirt bottle. All right, nothing special about that. And we've got a little bit of water, and then we have a sanitizer. Now, the sanitizer I'm using is called iodophor. You could use whatever sanitizer you want. Bleach water solution, Star San, it really doesn't matter. I use this, and so that's what we're using for the video. We're going to start off by sanitizing all of our equipment. And what I'm doing here is just adding 2 cups of regular water to my measuring cup. Nothing special about the water. For 2 cups of regular water, you're going to use roughly about a 1/4 teaspoon of iodophor. Now, depending on what sanitizer you're using, you're going to have to check the label. But for this sanitizer, a 1/4 teaspoon is all you need. A 1/4 teaspoon also equals a half of a capful. So you could either use a half a cap or a 1/4 teaspoon, add it to your water, and give it a mix. This is going to be our base sanitizing solution. Once we get that nice and mixed up, we're going to add our spoons in there because we want to sanitize those as well. And I want to make sure that everything gets coated because we want a contact time of at least 2 minutes. So we're going to use the funnel to add about a cup of sanitizer to that plastic bottle. All right, let's get the sprayer back on it and give it a little shake. I just want to make sure that the entire bottle gets into contact with that sanitizer, and then also want to spray it a few times. This is going to help that sanitizer go through that tube in there, which is going to sanitize the inside of that sprayer. Once we do that, we can go ahead and spray down the rest of our measuring glass, make sure that everything gets coated nice outside, inside, the whole thing. And at this point, we just want to let everything air dry. Now, this whole first step is about ensuring that we reduce the risk of introducing any bad molds or any bad contaminants to our solution that we're going to prepare right now. So all of our equipment has been sprayed down. It's had at least 2 minutes of contact time with this sanitizer, and that's all you need for iodophor. And like I said earlier, every sanitizer is going to have its own parameters, so you want to make sure you check that out. And we're just going to make sure that we set that on this drying rack so that it can properly air dry. I'm going to go ahead and pour the sanitizer out of this bottle. And there we go. That's what this first step is going to look like. Let's go ahead and just set that on our drying rack. We're going to get back to this once everything is air dried. There's no need to rinse off this sanitizer. And this is now what it looks like once it's dry. All right, so let's move on to step number 2, which is preparing our mold culture that will last up to 60 days in our refrigerator. So let's take our measuring cup, our measuring spoons. We are going to need a little salt. And we're going to need a little sugar, and we're also going to need, obviously, some mold. Now, I'm using mold 600, also known as Penicillium nalgiavense. This is the beneficial mold that keeps bad mold from growing on your charcuterie. And we're going to take our packet, give it a little shake, and you'll know that it's still good if it shakes loosely. And we're going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's going to go right into our measuring cup. 1/8 of a teaspoon. And we're also going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And the salt that I'm using is sea salt without iodine. And we're also going to need 1/8 of a teaspoon of sugar. Regular table sugar is fine. Notice I'm using turbinado sugar, but you could use white sugar. You don't need to have anything special like dextrose or anything like that. And then finally, we're going to need 1 cup of water. I recommend using distilled water for this particular application. If you can't get distilled water, just make sure that your water is not chlorinated. Let's go ahead and give it a mix until all the salt, sugar, and mold is well dissolved and fully incorporated into that water. And once you achieve that state, it's time to place it into your sanitized squirt bottle. And this is where that little funnel comes in ultra handy, although it's technically not necessary. Into the squirt bottle it goes, and now you can go ahead and tighten it up. Give it a little shake because you now have made a mold solution that will last 2 months, 60 days in your home refrigerator. Whenever you need it, take it out, give your salami or charcuterie a little spritz, and before you know it, you're going to see that beautiful white protective mold grow on your charcuterie. So now you don't have to worry about throwing away any extra mold culture, because with this, all you got to do is place it back in the refrigerator when you're done using it, and it'll last, like I said, roughly about 60 days. Both the salt and the sugar will help protect and feed the mold culture while it's in that refrigerated state. We made about a cup, and that's actually quite a bit. But if you find yourself running out pretty frequently, you can always either double or even triple the recipe, and it'll work just as fine. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. And if you like this type of behind-the-scenes content, don't forget to show me by subscribing and giving me a great big thumbs up. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.